We need to write chapter 1 of 12 for episode 17. The series title is As Hulls Melt and Crews Scream. The laser exchange GR-ending 2 Dreadnoughts to dust ASF. The previous context: Scavenger finds black box, Admiral Vaith exiled, legend grows. Key points: resolves defiance, Krell's arrogance, humanity's legacy. The chapter must be 801,000 words, macro to micro scale, no cliches, crisp military dialogue, high tension. Output only story text. We need to start episode 17. Perhaps this chapter focuses on the aftermath or a new battle. The title suggests a laser exchange between two Dreadnoughts could be a human versus Krell engagement. Since the episode is 17, likely continuing the story. Let's set the scene. A new human Dreadnought, maybe the Defiant or something, engages a Krell Dreadnought. Use macro to micro, start with the grand clash, then zoom into characters. Use crisp dialogue, avoid CLKs, make it gripping. I'll write a chapter about a human Dreadnought, Mercy of Saul, engaging a Krell Dreadnought, Vengeance of Thal. The humans are calm, the Krell arrogant. The laser exchange grinds both to dust. Focus on bridge crew, tension, orders, end with a cliffhanger. Ensure 800-100 words. The Mercy of Saul drifted into the kill box at 0.04 C, her hull still bleeding atmosphere from the last transit. On the tactical plot, the Krell Dreadnought Vengeance of Thal hung like a black mountain, its weapon's spines already tracking. "They're hailing," comms said. "Put it through," Captain Alara Vance replied. Her voice was flat. She had not slept in 40 hours. The view screen flickered to a Krell commander, ridged skull, 3 eyes the colors of a bruise. He spoke Galactic Standard with a wet hiss. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in the sovereign space of the Krell Ascendancy. Cut your drive and prepare for boarding. Your crew will be processed for labor. Your captain will be executed for the crime of defiance." Vance did not blink. "We're not here to negotiate. Then you will die. That's the plan." She cut the channel. The bridge crew, all 13 of them, did not react. They had heard the logs from the resolve. They knew what refusal meant. "Helm, bring us to 180 relative. Gunnery, charge the main banks. Priority target their forward emitter array. I want that thing dead before they get a second shot." "Aye, Captain." The Mercy of Saul was a dagger-class dreadnought built in the secret yards of Neptune's ring. She carried 32 laser cannons, each one a pulse-fused crystal that could punch through a kilometer of armor if the shot held steady. The Krell ship outmassed her by a factor of 3. Their lasers were older, slower, but they had more of them, and they had the arrogance of a species that had never lost a capital engagement. Vance had studied the Resolve's black box transcripts. She knew the pattern. Krell commanders expected humans to break, to surrender, to scream. They did not expect humans to sit silent while their ship burned around them. "Enemy firing solution locked," Gunnery reported. "They're lighting their main battery. Evasive pattern Delta 7. Counter-battery fire on my mark." The bridge lights dimmed as the Mercy's reactor diverted power to the capacitors. The deck vibrated, a deep, resonant hum that Vance felt in her teeth. She watched the range counter tick down. 200,000 kilometers, 180,000. The Krell ship was a smear of shadow against the local star. "They're firing," Tactical said. The first salvo hit the Mercy's forward shields. Light flooded the bridge, white, then orange, then red as the energy dissipated. The ship shuddered. A warning chime sounded from engineering, shield integrity at 71%. "Return fire," Vance said. The Mercy's lasers lanced out. 32 beams of coherent light, each one tuned to a frequency that would cause maximum harmonic resonance in Krell armor. The beams struck the Vengeance of Thal amidships. Metal vaporized. A section of the hull the size of a city block turned to plasma and vented into space. The Krell ship did not slow. It fired again. This time the shields buckled. The Mercy's hull groaned. A panel on the bridge wall cracked and spat sparks. The damage control officer, a gaunt woman named Torres, reported calmly. "Cargo Bay 2 is open to vacuum. No casualties. We've lost the port sensor array." "Patch it," Vance said. "Helm, bring us closer. I want to taste their paint." "Captain, at this range our point defense. I know the math. Do it." The Mercy accelerated. The Krell ship grew on the screen. Vance could see the scars from her first salvo, the edges of the melted armor still glowing. She could see the crew pods, the maintenance drones scrambling to seal breaches. The Krell commander came back on the channel. His voice was less certain now. "You are damaged. Your shields are failing. This is pointless." "Maybe," Vance said, "but you're bleeding too." She was right. The Vengeance of Thal had lost 3 of its 8 emitter arrays. Its fire rate was dropping, but the Mercy was losing power faster. The reactor was cycling at 112% of rated capacity. The coolant lines were beginning to boil. "Another salvo," Vance ordered. "Concentrate on the same point." The lasers fired. The beam struck the already weakened armor. This time the Krell hull split open. Atmosphere vented. Something exploded inside, a magazine maybe, or a secondary reactor. The vengeance of Thal began to list, but its remaining guns fired one last time. The beam hit the Mercy's bridge, not a direct hit, the shields caught it, but the energy bled through. The air turned to fire. 3 crew members died instantly, their bodies flash vaporized. Vance felt the heat sear her left arm. She did not scream. "Damage report," she said through the smoke. Torres was on the floor, bleeding from her ear. "Bridge is compromised, life support failing. We've got 5 minutes of breathable air. Helm is dead." Vance looked at the screen. The vengeance of Thal was still there, still firing, but its beams were wild, uncontrolled. It was dying. They were both dying. She reached for the comm panel. Her hand left a bloody print on the console. "All hands," she said, her voice steady. "This is the captain. We have done what we came to do. The Resolve's legacy is paid forward. If you can reach the escape pods, do it. If you can't, stand fast. We are humans. We do not surrender." The Mercy of Sol took one more hit. The main reactor breached. The ship began to come apart. Vance watched the Krell dreadnought burn. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Log this," she said to the black box. "For the record, humanity is still here. And we are still angry." Chapter 2, Episode 17. As hulls melt and crews scream, the Mercy of Sol was breaking apart, but the war was not finished. Across the void, the vengeance of Thal's hull glowed like a furnace, its plating peeling away in molten sheets. The Krell dreadnought's weapons fired sporadically, each beam a desperate lash from a dying beast, yet even crippled, it remained lethal. Captain Vance steadied herself against the ruined console. Her burned arm trembled, but her voice was iron. "Engineering status." A crackling reply came through the comm. "Reactor containment is gone. We're venting plasma. Hull integrity at 30%. "We can't hold her together." Vance's eyes narrowed. "Then we use what's left." The humans had always fought with fewer ships, fewer guns, fewer resources. What they had was resolve and the ability to weaponize desperation. She keyed into tactical. "Weapons, divert all remaining power to the spinal laser. One shot, make it count." Lieutenant Ree's voice was hoarse. "Captain, that will collapse the core. We'll lose the ship." "We've already lost the ship," Vance said, "but we can take theirs with us." On the Krell bridge, Admiral Thal's second-in-command staggered through smoke and sparks. The alien's scaled face twisted in fury. Human vessel still firing, shields collapsing. "We must withdraw." Thal's voice was a guttural snarl. "Withdraw from prey. No, we finish them, even if it costs us the fleet." The Krell had never understood humanity. They saw humans as fragile, reckless creatures. They mistook sacrifice for weakness. They never grasped that humans turned death into a weapon. The Mercy's spinal laser charged, its coils glowing white-hot. The ship's frame shuddered as systems cannibalized themselves to feed the weapon. Lights dimmed, gravity failed. Crew floated in the smoke-filled bridge, clinging to rails and consoles. "Target locked," Ree whispered. His hands shook, but his aim was steady. "Firing solution ready." Vance's gaze fixed on the tactical display. The Krell dreadnought loomed, its silhouette fractured, bleeding atmosphere and fire. She spoke with calm finality. "Do it." The beam erupted. It was not clean, not precise. It was raw fury, a lance of energy that tore through the void. It struck the vengeance of Thal amidships, punching through weakened armor, slicing into its reactor spine. For a moment, silence, then the Krell ship convulsed. Its core detonated, a chain reaction ripping through decks. The dreadnought split in two, each half spinning away, shedding fire and debris. Alien screams echoed across comm intercepts before cutting off abruptly. Sea of Sol was finished. The spinal laser's discharge had gutted her own reactor. Explosions cascaded through the hull. Bulkheads failed. Escape pods jettisoned, scattering like sparks from a dying flame. Vance remained on the bridge. She could have fled. She did not. Her place was here with the ship, with the crew who had already given everything. She pressed her hand against the console, feeling the vibration of destruction beneath her palm. Torres, barely conscious, looked at her. "Captain, we did it." Vance nodded once. Yes, humanity did it. The Mercy's hull tore open, the bridge filled with fire and vacuum. Vance's last sight was the Krell dreadnought breaking apart, its arrogance consumed in the same void it had sought to dominate. Far beyond the wreckage, Human Fleet Command received the final transmission. The black box carried Vance's words, "Humanity is still here, and we are still angry." The message spread across the fleet, across colonies, across every surviving outpost. It was not just a record, it was a declaration. The Krell had thought humans would break. Instead, they had learned humans burned brighter when cornered, and in the silence after the clash, as two dreadnoughts became drifting graves, the war shifted. The Krell Empire had lost more than a ship. They had lost the illusion of inevitability. Humanity had shown them that even in defeat, humans struck back with teeth bared, and the galaxy would remember. Chapter 3, the silence between beams. The wreckage of the Mercy of Sol drifted like a scar across the void, its fragments glowing faintly as atmosphere bled into nothingness. The Krell dreadnought, once a monument to imperial arrogance, was now a gutted carcass, its hull plates curling inward as if ashamed of their failure. From the command deck of the Resolute, Admiral Kieran Holt watched the aftermath. His officers stood rigid, eyes locked on the tactical displays. No one spoke. The silence was not reverence, it was calculation. Had shifted and every officer knew it. Status of the Krell fleet, Holt's voice was low, clipped. Commander Yara Chen adjusted her headset. Scattered, their escorts are pulling back but not in formation. They're confused. The Dreadnought was their anchor. Holt leaned forward, studying the holographic projection. The Krell ships flickered red across the grid, their movements erratic. Confusion is a weapon, exploit it. Yes, Admiral, Chen relayed orders, her tone precise, devoid of hesitation. Human destroyers began to reposition, their drives burning cold blue trails across the void. The bridge lights dimmed as the tactical AI fed in new probabilities. The numbers were brutal. Humanity had lost a Dreadnought, but the Krell had lost one too. In terms of raw tonnage, it was parity. In terms of morale, it was a fracture in the Empire's certainty. Lieutenant Rafik broke the silence. Admiral, incoming transmission. It's the Krell flagship. Holt's jaw tightened. Put it through. The hologram shimmered, resolving into the image of Krell High Commander Jorka. His scaled visage was twisted with fury, his voice a guttural rasp. Human vermin. You dare claim victory, you sacrificed your own vessel, you are nothing but carrion gnawing at the bones of greater species. Holt did not flinch. Your Dreadnought is dust, your empire bleeds. All us vermin, but vermin survive, empires rot. Jorka's eyes narrowed. We will grind your colonies into ash, every child of Saul will scream before the end. Holt's reply was calm, surgical. You mistake screaming for surrender. Our screams are war cries, and you've just heard the first. The transmission cut abruptly. Silence returned to the bridge, heavier than before. Chen exhaled slowly. They'll retaliate hard. Of course, Holt said, but retaliation without certainty is desperation. And desperation cracks fleets. He turned to Rafik. Signal all ships. Vance's sacrifice is not a loss, it's a doctrine. We fight knowing death is inevitable, but theirs will come first. The fleet's comm channels lit up with acknowledgments. Across dozens of ships, human crews straightened, their exhaustion tempered by grim resolve. Outside, the void shifted again. The Krell escorts regrouped, their drives flaring as they attempted to form a new line. The Resolute sensors caught the movement instantly. Admiral, Chen said, they're trying to stabilize. If they succeed, they'll push us back to the colony perimeter. Holt studied the tactical grid. Then we don't let them stabilize. Order the frigates to harass their flanks, keep them bleeding momentum. The orders rippled outward. Human frigates darted like knives, striking at the Krell escorts with precision bursts. Lasers carved through armor, forcing the alien ships to break formation. On the Krell flagship, Jorka watched his escorts falter. His claws dug into the command rail. Humans fight like rabid beasts, they do not know discipline. His second-in-command, a younger officer, hesitated. High Commander, perhaps discipline is not their strength, perhaps unpredictability is. Jorka snarled, silencing him. But the words lingered, gnawing at the commander's certainty. Back aboard the Resolute, Holt's eyes remained fixed on the grid. They're learning, that makes them dangerous, but it also makes them slower. Every lesson costs them blood, Chen nodded, and every scream echoes. The clash intensified, beams lanced across the void, carving arcs of destruction. Hulls melted, crews screamed, and the silence between volleys grew heavier, filled with the weight of inevitability. Holt stood unmoving, his voice steady as he issued orders. We hold this line not because it is safe, not because it is wise. We hold it because humanity has decided the Krell will not pass. The crew responded with crisp affirmations. No hesitation, no fear. And as the battle ground forward, the galaxy itself seemed to pause, watching two empires collide, one arrogant, one defiant. One convinced of destiny, the other fueled by rage. The void did not care who survived, but humanity did, and that was enough. Chapter 4, The line holds the void between the Dreadnoughts, was no longer empty. It was a furnace, a corridor of light where beams collided, refracted, and tore through armor plating as if the ships themselves were made of brittle glass. The Krell flagship, Dominion of Claws, loomed like a predator, its hull bristling with emitter arrays that pulsed in rhythm with Jorka's fury. Opposite it, the Resolute stood defiant, its silhouette scarred but unbroken, every scar a testament to survival. On the Krell bridge, Jorka's claws scraped against the command rail, leaving deep gouges in the alloy. His voice carried across the chamber, sharp and unyielding. Focus all batteries on their forward section. Humans believe their armor is eternal, show them it is not. The gunnery officers obeyed, their mandibles clicking as they relayed firing solutions. The flagship's lasers converged into a single, blinding lance. It struck the Resolute's prow, melting steel into rivers of molten slag. Hull plating buckled, venting atmosphere in violent bursts. Back aboard the Resolute, alarms screamed, but Holt's voice cut through them like a blade. Seal compartments, redirect coolant. Keep the forward grid online, we don't retreat. Chen's hands flew across the console, rerouting power from auxiliary systems. Sparks showered the deck as conduits overloaded. Forward grid holding at 60%. If they push harder, we'll lose it. Holt's gaze never wavered. Then we push harder back. The human dreadnought answered with a counter-volley, its lasers, narrower but more precise, carved into the Krell flagship's flank. Armor peeled away in sheets, exposing the raw machinery beneath. Krell crew screamed as compartments depressurized, their voices carried through internal comms before cutting to silence. Jorka's second-in-command, the younger officer who had dared question him earlier, spoke again, his tone measured but urgent. "High Commander, their strikes are surgical. They do not waste energy. Every shot cripples something vital." Jorka turned, eyes burning. "And yet they bleed. Look at their prow. Look at the fire spilling from their wounds. Discipline will outlast desperation." The officer hesitated, then bowed his head, but doubt lingered in the set of his shoulders. On the Resolute, Holt leaned closer to the tactical display. The Krell flagship's flank glowed with ruptured conduits. He pointed. "Target their coolant lines. They're overheating. If we rupture those, their weapons will falter." Chen nodded, recalibrating the firing grid. Solution locked, firing. The Resolute's lasers speared across the void, striking deep into the Krell's wounded flank. The impact was catastrophic. Coolant reservoirs burst, venting superheated vapor into space. The Krell flagship's weapons arrays flickered, their rhythm broken. Jorka roared, slamming his claws against the rail. "Stabilize the grid, divert power from life support if necessary." The younger officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "High Commander, if we divert from life support, crew casualties will rise." Jorka's glare silenced him. "Crew are expendable." "Victory is not." The Krell flagship's weapons sputtered back to life, but their beams lacked the cohesion of earlier volleys. The Resolute pressed the advantage, its lasers cutting deeper, forcing the Krell into a defensive posture. Holt's voice remained calm, almost unnervingly so. "They're faltering, keep pressure steady. No wild strikes, precision wins wars." The crew responded with crisp affirmations. No panic, no hesitation. Then a sudden tremor shook the Resolute. A Krell beam had found its mark, slicing through the starboard hangar. Explosions rippled outward, consuming fighters before they could launch. The deck shuddered, and for a moment, silence fell across the bridge. Chen's voice broke it. "Hangar lost, casualties heavy." Holt closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed steel. "We mourn later, right now we fight." The words carried weight. The crew straightened, their hands steady despite the loss. Across the void, Jorka watched the human dreadnought burn, yet still fight with precision. His officer spoke again, softer this time. "High Commander, they do not break. Even when wounded, they strike with clarity. Perhaps unpredictability is not their strength. Perhaps it is resolve." Jorka's claws tightened on the rail. Resolve, the word tasted bitter. The battle raged on, beams crossing like blades, each strike tearing more from the ships. Hulls melted, crews screamed, and the void filled with the echoes of destruction. Yet neither dreadnought yielded. On the Resolute, Holt's final order for the cycle rang clear. "Hold this line, not for safety, not for wisdom. Hold it because humanity has chosen to stand, and standing is enough." The crew answered as one, voices steady against the storm. And in that corridor of fire, two empires clashed, one arrogant, one defiant, one convinced of destiny, the other fueled by rage. The void did not care who survived, but humanity did, and that was enough. The acrid tang of burnt wiring and melted alloy hung thick over the Resolute's bridge, the low thrum of damaged systems overlaying the steady, bone-rattling thud of hull impacts from the crossfire with the Jor Dreadnought Wrath of the Void. Chen's fingers flew across his sensor console, the readouts painting a stark picture of both ships' degradation. Hull integrity down to 62% for both vessels. Weapons capacity at 41% for us, 38% for them. Their port maneuvering thruster array is offline. They're drifting 0.3 degrees starboard per minute. Holt's voice was flat, no trace of the grief he'd buried 10 minutes prior when the hangar casualty report came through. All non-essential power to the forward laser array. Retarget their command spire, not their weapons mounts. Their helm can't correct for the drift fast enough to compensate for a direct hit on their upper deck. Petty Officer Javi Rios, her left cheek crusted with dried blood from the hangar explosion, adjusted her firing solution without looking up from her controls. Firing solution locked. Elevation 12.4, azimuth 287.2. Adjusting for their drift now. She pressed the firing stud, and a lance of sapphire laser tore across the 12,000 click gap between the two ships, slamming into the wrath of the Void's command spire outer plating. Sparks and molten metal sprayed out into the void as the alien ship lurched, its next retaliatory beam missing the Resolute's bridge by less than 50 meters. On the Wrath of the Void's bridge, Jorka's claws shredded the padded arm of his command chair. 3 of his senior officers lay dead at their stations, their bodies charred by the laser strike that had punched through the spire's outer layer. Vrax, his second-in-command, kept his voice steady despite the blood dripping down his forehead from a shrapnel wound. "High Commander, their targeting has shifted entirely. They're no longer prioritizing our weapons arrays. They're aiming to disable our command structure before we can launch our boarding parties." Jorka roared, the sound echoing off the alien ship's curved metal walls. They think precision makes them strong. Launch all remaining assault craft, board their ship, kill every crew member you find, bring me their captain's corpse. I will mount his skull on my prow as proof that human resolve is nothing but a foolish refusal to accept extinction. Back on the Resolute, Damage Control Corporal Mara Voss barked orders into her comms as she waded through the smoke-filled corridor outside the ruined starboard hangar. Her team was dragging survivors out from under the wreckage of 2 destroyed fighters. One pilot's leg twisted at an unnatural angle as he grabbed her arm, his voice tight with pain. "I can still fly. Patch me up, I'll take my fighter out and take some of them with me." Voss didn't break stride, kicking a piece of melted hull plating out of her path. "Medics are on their way. You're not flying anything today." Kale, check the fuel line rupture in Corridor 7. If that sparks, we lose the entire port weapons deck. Move. A dull thud vibrated through the deck plates under her boots as another laser strike hit the Resolute's hull, but she didn't flinch. Her job was to keep the ship flying, not cower at the sound of enemy fire. The bridge alarms blared a second later. "Captain, 12 Jor assault craft launched," Chen called out, his fingers flying across his console. "They're on an intercept course for our port hull, ETA 7 minutes. Point defense batteries are locked and waiting for your order to engage." Holt's hand hovered over the comms button, his gaze fixed on the sensor feed showing the tiny, glowing dots of the alien boarding craft streaking toward his ship. "Hold fire until they're within 4,000 clicks. Don't waste rounds on decoys. Gunnery, prep a full broadside for when they break formation. And get the Marine complement to their staging areas. If they board, we meet them in the corridors, not on the bridge." He pressed the all-hands comms button, his voice steady, cutting through the alarms and the distant thud of impacts. "All hands, this is the captain. The enemy thinks our losses have broken us. They're wrong. Every one of you today fights not just for the ship, but for every human colony that will never kneel to an empire that thinks it owns the stars. Hold the line." A sharp, unyielding cheer went up from the crew as the first boarding craft crossed the 4,000-click threshold. Javi Rios locked her targeting reticle onto the lead craft, pressed her firing stud, and watched it explode in a burst of fire and debris, the shockwave rattling the Resolute's hull. More craft were coming, faster now, and the crossfire between the 2 dreadnoughts grew louder, brighter, each strike tearing more molten metal from both hulls as the battle dragged on, neither side willing to yield. The shockwave from the vaporized boarding craft rattled the Resolute's bridge so hard a stack of data pads slid off the command console, clattering to the grated floor. Javi Rios didn't flinch, her fingers already cycling her point defense turret's power core to compensate for the drain from the first volley. Above her, the main viewscreen split. One feed showed the remaining Zalari boarding craft streaking through the crossfire of laser fire crisscrossing the void between the 2 dreadnoughts. The other showed the Void Reaver, the Zalari hegemony's flagship, its jagged obsidian hull pocked with molten craters from the Resolute's sustained broadside. 3 more bogies broke formation, vectoring for engineering, Chen called, his voice tight as he fought to keep sensor locks through the Zalari jamming cloud. ETA 4 minutes. Point defense hit rate is down to 58%. Their ECM is scrambling our targeting software. I'm rerouting aux power to the fire control system. Give me 10 seconds. Holt didn't take his eyes off the tactical overlay. The Resolute's starboard armor was glowing cherry red along a 200-meter stretch, melted through in 3 places by sustained laser fire from the Void Reaver's forward batteries. A damage control team was already reporting in from Deck 14, their voices crackling over the comms. "Breach sealed, but we've got 2 casualties. Hull temperature in the corridor is 120 degrees and rising. Reroute power from non-essential systems to point defense arrays 3 through 7, Holt ordered, his voice steady, cutting through the blare of hull breach alarms. Override the jamming filter, prioritize thermal signatures over RF. If even one of those craft reaches engineering, we lose main drive and shield generators. We're sitting ducks for their primary laser." Javi's reticle locked onto the lead bogey as it broke through a cloud of debris from a destroyed Resolute escort fighter. She pressed her firing stud, and the turret's 20 plasma rounds slammed into the craft's port engine, sending it spinning into the path of a stray laser blast from the Void Reaver that vaporized it entirely. "1 down, 2 remaining," she called, swapping out a depleted power cell for a fresh one. "They're releasing decoy flares, thermal locks are slipping. Ignore the flares," Holt said. "Target the heat bloom behind them. Gunnery, prep a full port broadside, target the incoming craft in the Void Reaver's forward missile silos. I want those silos gone before they can get a salvo off." Sergeant Reyes' voice cut in over the comms, sharp and no nonsense. "Captain, my Marines are staged in all access corridors, but we've got hull breach alerts popping up on decks 12, 13, and 14. If they board before we clear those craft, we're fighting on 8 separate fronts." I need permission to deploy security teams to the breach points now. Negative, Holt replied without hesitation. Hold your Marines in reserve until the first enemy foot touches the hull. We don't spread thin. Point defense has 90 seconds to clear the remaining bogies. If even one gets through, you're the first line. The bridge lurched as a laser strike grazed the port hull, blowing out a secondary comms relay. Sparks showered down from the overhead conduit, and Chen swore under his breath as his console flickered, the sensor feed glitching for 3 full seconds before the secondary array kicked in. Bogey count is 2. They're weaving through the point defense fire. I can't get a stable lock on either one. Javi leaned forward, her jaw set, ignoring the heat radiating from the console in front of her. She manually adjusted her turret's firing angle, bypassing the automated targeting system, and tracked the faint thermal signature of the lead craft tucked behind its decoy flares. She held her breath, squeezed the firing stud, and watched the rounds tear through the craft's hull, sending it exploding into a shower of molten alloy. "One bogey left," she yelled. "It's braking for engineering, 1100 clicks and closing." "Hold fire until it's within 2000 clicks," Holt ordered, his hand hovering over the broadside firing stud. The entire bridge went quiet for 3 seconds, the only sound the hum of the consoles and the distant thud of impacts against the hull. The remaining boarding craft weaved through a barrage of point defense fire, its hull glowing from near-miss laser blasts, inching closer to the Resolute's engineering bay. 2000 clicks, Chen called. Holt slammed the firing stud. The Resolute's portside laser batteries lit up the void, a solid wall of blue-white energy slamming into the boarding craft and vaporizing it mid-flight, the shockwave rattling the hull so hard a cracked viewport in the bridge's observation deck blew out entirely. The second salvo of the broadside slammed into the Void Reaver's forward missile silos, and a chain reaction of explosions blew the entire bow section of the Zalari flagship off, sending twisted metal and debris spinning into the void. The Void Reaver's return fire slackened for a full 10 seconds, the crossfire dimming for the first time since the battle began. A quiet cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Holt didn't join in. He was staring at the sensor feed, his jaw tight. "Chen, what's the Void Reaver's reactor output?" Chen's fingers flew across his console and his face went pale. "Captain, they're venting coolant from their main reactor. They're charging their primary spinal laser. Time to full charge, 2 minutes. If that hits our bridge, we're nothing but dust." The cheer died before Holt's next order cut the air. "All hands brace for counterfire. Chen, full status, active weapons, hull integrity, reactor output." Chen's fingers flew across his console, the soft hum of the bridge drowned out by the distant thud of another impact against the hull. "Port broadside 3 of 12 batteries operational, starboard 7. Point defense at 62% ammunition load, hull integrity 41%, engineering secondary reactor leak is contained, full power available for engines. Void Reaver's spinal laser charge is at 18% and climbing, time to full charge 1 minute 58 seconds. Their reactor output is spiking 300% above baseline. They dumped 90% of their primary coolant reserves to power that shot. It's a one-time charge, Captain. If they fire it, their reactor hits critical in 4 minutes regardless. Holt's jaw tightened. The Zalari weren't just trying to destroy the Resolute, they were willing to take their own ship out with them. He leaned over the tactical display, eyes locked on the Void Reaver's silhouette, its bow sheared clean off, twisted metal still trailing sparking debris. "What's their maneuverability?" "Forward port thrusters are 78% destroyed from our last salvo. Maximum turn rate 1.2 degrees per second. Their spinal laser firing arc is 15 degrees off their port bow. We're currently 22 degrees outside that arc." "Perfect." Holt didn't hesitate. "Starboard batteries, target their remaining portside maneuvering thrusters. Don't let them turn. Ops, divert all non-essential power to main engines. Get us into that blind spot before they top off the charge." The Resolute shuddered as 7 starboard laser batteries opened fire, solid barrages of blue-white energy slamming into the Void Reaver's port flank. Explosions bloomed along the alien ship's hull, thruster ports gouting plasma as they were blown apart. The Void Reaver listed hard to starboard, unable to correct its heading. "Blind spot entry in 12 seconds, the helm officer called, knuckles white around his control stick. The Zalari's secondary batteries opened fire, random unguided blasts streaking past the Resolute's hull. One slammed into the bridge's already cracked forward viewport, blowing it inward in a shower of glass and decompressed air. Alarms blared, but no one flinched. The deck plates vibrated under their boots as the Resolute's engines pushed them the last few clicks into the 15-degree blind spot. The Void Reaver's spinal mount glowed bright enough to outshine its own hull. A beam of crackling violet energy screamed through the void, slamming into the empty space the Resolute had occupied 10 seconds prior. The shockwave rattled the Resolute so hard unsecured consoles skittered across the bridge, a crewman catching himself on his station before he could fall. Half the remaining point defense batteries shorted out from the electromagnetic pulse. Spinal laser off target, Chen called, his voice steady despite the alarms wailing around him. Void Reaver reactor temperature at 91% of critical. That shot drained their remaining coolant reserves. Their spinal mount won't fire again for at least 10 minutes, and their reactor will go critical in 3 minutes 40 seconds if they don't shut it down. All their power is routed to secondary weapons and damage control now. Point defense is offline. Holt stared at the tactical display. The Zalari flagship was dead in the water, its reactor counting down to explosion. No way to track the Resolute in its blind spot, no way to stop them. He didn't smile. Ops plot an intercept course for their engineering bay. Torpedo officer, load antimatter warheads, set detonation to 2 seconds after impact. We're not letting that reactor blow, and take whatever salvage is left on that ship with it. And signal all damage control teams, prepare for boarding operations once we're docked. The ensign at comms nodded, tapping her console. Aye, Captain, transmitting now. Holt leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the Zalari ship's glowing reactor core on the sensor feed. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time since the exchange started, the advantage was theirs. Chapter 8, The Reactor's Shadow. The Resolute's hull groaned as maneuvering thrusters fired, dragging the massive Dreadnought into the blind arc of the Zalari flagship. The tactical display flickered with static, but the outline of the Void Reaver remained clear, a crippled Leviathan reactor core pulsing like a dying star. Course locked, Ops reported, voice clipped. ETA to docking corridor, 90 seconds. Holt's gaze never left the sensor feed. The alien ship's reactor was climbing past 92% of critical. The numbers ticked upward in red increments, each one a reminder that the window for salvage was closing. Engineering, Holt said, tone flat. Prepare containment fields. If their core breaches while we're attached, I want every bulkhead sealed before the shockwave hits. Aye, Captain, came the reply, steady but tight. The bridge smelled of ozone and burnt insulation. Damage control teams were still patching scorched conduits from the last exchange, but no one complained. Every officer knew the stakes. If the Void Reaver detonated uncontrolled, the debris field would poison the sector for decades. If they captured it intact, humanity would hold the first Zalari dreadnought ever taken in combat. Chen's eyes flicked across his console. Their reactor is destabilizing faster than projected. 3 minutes, maybe less. Internal sensors show coolant pumps offline. They're venting plasma into their own crew decks. The comms ensign swallowed hard. Captain, intercepting fragments of Zalari transmissions. They're screaming. Engineering bay is in chaos. Reactor crews are abandoning stations. Holt's jaw tightened. Cowards, they built that monster, now they run from it. Helm, bring us in closer. Torpedo officer, confirm antimatter load. Warheads armed, the officer replied. Detonation set for 2 seconds post-impact, targeting their engineering bay bulkhead. The Resolute shuddered as its docking clamps extended, massive arms reaching for the alien hull. Sparks cascaded across the tactical overlay where the two ships' shields brushed against each other, then collapsed under the strain. Contact in 30 seconds, Ops announced. The crew held their breath. The Void Reaver loomed on the forward display, its hull scarred by laser burns, plating peeled back like flesh. Through the rents in its armor, the reactor glow bled outward, a malignant light. Chen's voice cut through the silence. Captain, reactor temperature at 94%. If we don't breach and stabilize within 2 minutes, it goes critical. Holt leaned forward, voice low but sharp. We're not here to watch them die. We're here to take their secrets, dock us. The impact reverberated through the Resolute as the clamps locked. Metal screamed against metal. The boarding corridor extended, a spear of steel piercing into the alien dreadnought. Boarding teams go, Holt ordered. The comms channel erupted with terse confirmations. Human Marines surged down the corridor, weapons primed, faces hidden behind visors. The feed showed them entering the alien engineering bay, smoke, fire, and panicked Zalari technicians scattering like insects. Resistance minimal, reported Lieutenant Cade, voice comm despite the chaos. They're abandoning positions, reactor chamber ahead. Chen's console flared, core at 95%, radiation levels spiking. Captain, if we don't stabilize now, we lose everything. Holt's reply was ice. Torpedo officer, fire. The antimatter warhead streaked down the boarding corridor, a silent dart. It slammed into the reactor bulkhead, detonating with surgical precision. The blast tore through alien shielding, vaporizing control conduits, but the containment field held. The reactor's climb halted at 96%, frozen in unstable equilibrium. On the feed, Marines stormed into the chamber. The Zalari reactor loomed above them, a sphere of seething plasma caged in alien alloys. Sparks rained from ruptured conduits. The Marines moved with mechanical precision, deploying portable stabilizers, locking clamps onto the reactor housing. Containment field engaged, Cade reported. Core stabilized at 96%, it's holding. The bridge exhaled as one, Holt didn't. His eyes stayed fixed on the reactor's glow. Chen, he said quietly, calculate how long we can keep that core stable without their coolant systems. Chen's fingers danced across his console. 40 minutes, maybe less. After that, containment collapses. Holt nodded once. 40 minutes to strip their ship bare. Ops signal all teams. Priority is weapons schematics, reactor design, and command codes. Everything else is secondary. The comms ensign hesitated. Captain. Incoming transmission. It's the Zalari commander. Audio only. Holt's eyes narrowed. Put it through. The channel crackled, then a guttural voice filled the bridge. Human, you desecrate our vessel. You think you have won. But you have only chained yourselves to our death. When the core burns, it will consume you as well. Holt's reply was calm, almost bored. Your arrogance built this coffin. We're just the ones sealing the lid. Enjoy the silence, Commander. He cut the channel. Chen looked up. Captain, if they trigger a manual overload, we won't have time to disengage. Holt's gaze swept the bridge. Then we hold the line. Humanity didn't claw its way into the stars to be frightened by alien theatrics. We'll take their ship, their secrets, and their pride. And if the core burns us too, then history will remember who stood unflinching in the reactor's shadow. The crew stared at him, the weight of his words settling like steel. No one spoke. Outside, the two dreadnoughts hung locked together, titans bound in death's embrace. The Void Reaver's reactor pulsed, a caged star threatening to consume them both. And aboard the Resolute, humans moved with terrifying calm, stripping their enemy piece by piece as time bled away. The battle wasn't over. It had only shifted into a new, darker phase. And Holt knew the next 40 minutes would decide not just the fate of two ships, but the balance of empires. Chapter 9. Reactors shadow. The bridge of the Resolute hummed with restrained violence. Every console glowed with warnings. Every officer's face was lit by the red pulse of proximity alarms. The two dreadnoughts remained locked, hulls fused by molten scars where beams had carved through armor. The Zalari vessel, Void Reaver, was bleeding atmosphere into the void, yet its reactor still pulsed like a predator's heart. Status on their core, Holt's voice cut through the tension. Chen's hands danced across the console. Containment field is destabilizing. They're forcing a manual override. If they succeed, the detonation will vaporize us before we can disengage. Holt leaned forward, elbows on the command rail. Options. Lieutenant Ramai, tactical officer, spoke without hesitation. We can push boarding teams deeper, secure engineering before they finish the override, risk high casualties certain. Alternative, Holt pressed, target their reactor conduits with precision fire, but if we miss, Ramai stopped, the implication clear. Holt's gaze swept the bridge, calm, deliberate. We don't miss. Outside, the exchange of beams intensified. The Resolute spinal laser carved into the Reaver's flank, slicing through layers of alien alloy. The Zalari answered with a barrage of particle lances, each strike hammering the Resolute's shields. Sparks cascaded across the human dreadnought's hull, plating buckling under the relentless assault. Shield integrity at 43%, Chen reported. We can't sustain this much longer. Holt's reply was measured. Then we break them before they break us. The comms crackled again, a guttural voice strained but defiant. Human, you cling to survival like vermin. Our death will be your grave. Holt didn't flinch. You mistake resolve for desperation. We don't cling, we carve. He cut the channel. Boarding reports streamed in. Commander Vega's voice came through, ragged with exertion. Captain, we've breached their engineering deck. Resistance is brutal. They're fighting like zealots, no retreat, no surrender. Push harder, Holt ordered. Every second counts. The feed shifted, helmet cams showing corridors choked with smoke, alien bodies sprawled across twisted metal. Human Marines advanced with ruthless precision, rifles barking, grenades detonating in confined spaces. The Zalari fought with claws, plasma blades, and suicidal charges, their shrieks echoing through the comms. Casualties mounting, Vega warned. We'll lose half the team before we reach the core. Holt's tone was iron. Then lose them. The mission outweighs the men. Silence followed. No one questioned him. On the bridge, Chen's console flared. Captain, their override is accelerating. 30 minutes until detonation. Holt straightened. Ramai, prepare precision strike on their conduits. Synchronize with Vega's advance. If they fail, we burn them ourselves. Ramai's jaw tightened. Understood. The Resolute's gunners adjusted targeting arrays, beams narrowing into surgical lances. The next volley pierced deep into the Reaver's reactor housing, sending shockwaves through the alien vessel. Explosions rippled across its hull, fragments spinning into the void. Inside, Vega's Marines pressed forward, cutting down defenders with brutal efficiency. The feed showed them breaching the reactor chamber, an abyss of machinery, glowing conduits feeding into a core that throbbed like a living star. Captain, we're in, Vega reported. But they've locked the override. We'll need to sever it manually. Do it, Holt commanded. The Marines moved, planting charges along the conduits. Zalari defenders hurled themselves into the chamber, bodies igniting under human fire. One Marine fell, then another, but the team pressed on, relentless. On the bridge, Chen's voice rose, core instability rising, 20 minutes. Holt's eyes narrowed. Vega status, charges set, detonating now. The feed flared white. Explosions ripped through the conduits, severing the override systems. The reactor's pulse faltered, then stabilized barely. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Holt raised a hand. Not yet, their pride won't die so easily. As if on cue, the Reaver's weapons surged, a final desperate barrage. Particle lances hammered the Resolute, tearing through weakened shields. Consoles sparked, alarms screamed. Shields collapsing, Chen shouted. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. Holt's voice was steady. Return fire all batteries. The Resolute unleashed its arsenal. Lasers, railguns, missile salvos, all converged on the Reaver's core. The alien dreadnought shuddered, armor peeling away, decks collapsing inward. On Vega's feed, the Marines withdrew, sprinting through collapsing corridors as fire consumed the chamber. Captain, reactor is failing, it's going critical. Holt's gaze hardened. Then we finish it. Raymai, full power to spinal laser, aim for the heart. The beam fired, a lance of pure fury. It speared the Reaver's reactor, piercing through containment. The alien vessel convulsed, hull splitting, energy surging outward in a blinding eruption. The Resolute rocked violently, shields straining against the blast. For a moment the void was filled with fire, two titans locked in mutual destruction. Then the Reaver was gone, reduced to fragments drifting into silence. The bridge fell quiet, smoke curled from consoles, officers slumped in exhaustion. Chen exhaled. We survived. Holt's reply was cold, resolute. No, we endured. Survival is for animals, endurance is for empires. Outside, the void swallowed the remains of the Reaver. The Resolute drifted, scarred but unbroken. Humanity had stood unflinching in the reactor's shadow and carved victory from the jaws of annihilation. But Holt knew this was only one battle. The Zalari would not forget, and the war had only begun. The Resolute drifted through the debris field, its hull a patchwork of smoking craters and fused armor. On the bridge, the silence was broken only by the low hum of failing systems and the occasional crackle of a dying console. Damage report, Holt said, not looking up from his command station. Chen's voice was hollow. We've lost 43% of our portside batteries. Decks 7 through 9 are open to vacuum. Casualties are heavy. Engineering reports the reactor is stable, but we're running on emergency reserves. Holt nodded slowly. And the Zalari, no contacts within scanning range. The Reaver's destruction scattered their support craft. They're running. Good. Holt finally turned, his eyes scanning the bridge crew. They were battered, bloody, but still at their stations. We hold position, begin repairs. I want us combat capable in 6 hours. Vega's voice cut through the comms, strained but steady. Captain, we recovered the artifact. It's intact. The Zalari didn't get it. Holt allowed himself a single breath of relief. Bring it to the lab, secure it. No one touches it without my direct order. Understood. The bridge fell back into a rhythm of quiet urgency. Officers relayed damage assessments, engineers patched what they could, and medics triaged the wounded. The smell of burnt wiring and ozone hung thick in the air. Lieutenant Raymai approached Holt, his face smudged with soot. Captain, the Zalari fleet is regrouping near the Cygnus Gate. We have maybe 8 hours before they return with reinforcements. Holt's jaw tightened. Then we'll be gone before they arrive. Plot a course for the nearest human-held system. Maximum stealth. Aye, Captain. As Raymai turned to execute the order, Chen stepped closer, her voice low. We won this fight, but we lost a lot of good people. The crew needs to know it meant something. Holt met her gaze. It did. We proved we can stand against them. We proved that their arrogance is a weakness. And we took something they wanted badly enough to sacrifice a dreadnought for. The artifact. Yes, Holt's eyes hardened, and we'll find out why. Then we'll use it. The Resolute limped into the darkness, its wounds still fresh, its crew still grieving. But as the stars stretched out before them, there was no despair in Holt's voice, only the cold, unyielding certainty of a man who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. We endure, he said, almost to himself, and we make them pay for every inch. The lab was a tomb of cold light and humming machinery. The artifact sat at its center, a slab of obsidian-like material etched with grooves that seemed to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. Dr. Alara Voss circled it, her scanner humming, her face unreadable. Holt stood at the doorway, arms crossed. Report, Voss didn't look up. It's not of Zalari origin. The isotopic signature is wrong, older, much older. How old? She finally met his gaze. We can't date it. The decay rates don't match anything in our database, but the structure, it's not solid. There's a core shielded by layers we can't penetrate without risking detonation. Holt stepped closer. Detonation. The energy readings are off the scale. If this thing is a weapon, it's not one we understand, and if it's a power source. She paused, tapping her tablet. It could sustain a fleet for centuries, or destroy one. Yes, the ship shuddered. A low groan echoed through the hull. Holt's comm crackled. Captain, we've got a problem. Lieutenant Raymai's voice was tight. The Zalari didn't wait 8 hours. They're here 3 hours ahead of schedule. Holt's jaw tightened. How many? 2 dreadnoughts, 4 cruisers, and they're not alone. We're picking up a third signature, something big, bigger than anything we've seen. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as Holt strode in. Chen was already at her station, face pale. They've got us bracketed. We can run, but they'll catch us before we reach the gate. Then we don't run, Holt's voice was ice. We make them come to us. He turned to Voss, who had followed him. Can you weaponize that thing? Not safely. Not quickly. I didn't ask for safe, I asked for possible. Voss hesitated. If I route the core energy through the emitter arrays, we might get one shot. Unstable, unpredictable, but it'll hit hard. Do it. Chen's hands flew across her console. Captain, the lead dreadnought is hailing us. They're demanding unconditional surrender. They say they'll let non-combatants evacuate. Holt's laugh was short and bitter. They're lying. They always lie. Plot an intercept course. Maximum thrust. We'll be in their kill zone for 3 minutes. Then make every second count. The Resolute turned, its damaged hull groaning, and accelerated toward the enemy fleet. The Zalari ships spread out, forming a crescent of death. Energy weapons charged, their glow casting eerie shadows across the bridge. 60 seconds to contact, Raymai announced. Holt keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands brace for impact. We're going to show them what happens when you corner a wounded animal. The first volley struck. The Resolute's shields flared, absorbing the blow, but the second hit harder. Alarms blared. Sparks rained from a ruptured conduit. Shields at 40%, Chen reported. Voss, status on the weapon, charging 30 seconds. Another impact. The deck lurched. Holt grabbed his chair to stay upright. Return fire. Full spread, the Resolute's cannons roared. Plasma bolts slammed into the lead dreadnought, buckling its armor. But the Zalari held formation, their return fire relentless. Shields at 15%. 10 seconds, Voss said, her voice strained. Fire when ready. The seconds stretched. Holt watched the tactical display, the enemy ships closing in. Then Voss's voice cut through. Firing now. A beam of light erupted from the Resolute's forward array. It wasn't plasma, it wasn't laser. It was something else, a lance of pure white that seemed to bend space itself. It struck the lead dreadnought and didn't stop. The alien ship's shields vaporized, its hull melted, then shattered. The beam punched through, carving a path of destruction. The dreadnought broke apart, its reactors detonating in a silent bloom of fire. The remaining Zalari ships faltered, their formation broke. For a moment there was silence on the bridge, then Chen whispered, "They're retreating." Holt allowed himself a single breath. Damage report. We're dead in the water, engines offline, shields gone, but we're still breathing. He looked at the tactical display. The enemy was gone, the artifact had bought them time. Get us moving, he said. Even if we have to drift, we're not done yet. The Resolute limped onward, its crew battered but unbowed. And somewhere in the darkness, the artifact hummed, patient and waiting. We need to write chapter 12 of 12 for episode 17. The context ends with the Resolute limping onward after using the artifact. The chapter should conclude the episode, likely with a resolution or cliffhanger. The style, macro to micro, no cliches, crisp dialogue, high tension, 801,000 words, must be gripping and detailed. The series title suggests a focus on the laser exchange, grinding 2 dreadnoughts to dust, but that's the episode's theme. Chapter 12 is the finale. We need to show the aftermath, perhaps the artifact's true nature or a new threat. Avoid repetition, stay concise but engaging. Output-only story text. The Resolute drifted. Her engines were cold, her shields a memory. The bridge hummed with the low thrum of emergency power, the only sound beyond the occasional cough of a damaged console. Holt stared at the tactical display, empty space where the Zalari fleet had been. The artifact's beam had carved a hole through reality, and the enemy had scattered like startled insects. Status report, he said, his voice flat. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Containment teams are working. FTL drive is slag. Main reactors are offline. We're running on auxiliary batteries. Chen's fingers danced across her station. Life support is stable. Casualties, 23 dead, 41 wounded. We're not sinking, but we're not swimming either. Holt nodded. Weapons. The spinal mount is gone. It was a one-shot. The focusing crystal cracked after the discharge. We've got nothing bigger than point defense lasers. Great. Holt rubbed his temples. So we're a floating coffin with a dead god inside. Voss turned from her engineering station. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. Sir, the artifact is still active. It's emitting a low-level resonance. I'm reading energy fluctuations that don't match any known power source. Can we use it again? No, the mount is destroyed, but the artifact itself, it's doing something. She pulled up a holographic readout. It's transmitting. A pattern repeated like a beacon. Holt's blood went cold. A beacon to whom? Unknown. The signal is directed, not omnidirectional. It's aimed at a specific point in space. I'm trying to triangulate, but it's beyond our current sensor range. The Zalari were trying to get it. They knew what it was. Holt stood, gripping the edge of his console. If they're coming back with reinforcements, we need to move. Can we jury-rig the engines? Maybe. We have a spare fusion core in Cargo Bay 4, but it's not rated for combat. We'd get maybe 30% thrust, enough to limp to the nearest relay station. That's it. Do it. Every available hand. I want us moving in 2 hours. The crew scrambled. Holt watched the artifact signal on the display, a steady pulse like a heartbeat. He didn't like it. It felt like a countdown. 20 minutes later, Chen's voice cut through the noise. Sir, I've got something. The beacon's target. It's not a planet. It's a ship, a massive signature. Reading, it's bigger than anything we've ever seen, several times the size of a dreadnought. Zalari, no, different energy signature. Not Zalari, not human, not anything in our database. She looked up, her face pale. And it's moving, fast, intercept course. Holt's jaw tightened. Time to intercept. At current drift, 6 hours. If we get the engines online, we can cut that to 4. But we'll be dead in the water when it arrives. Then we fight or we run, but we don't sit here and wait. He turned to Voss. Get that core online. Chen, prep the point defense. If that thing is hostile, I want to at least scratch its paint. The next hour was a blur of sparks and shouted orders. The emergency fusion core was hauled into place, cables snaking through ruined corridors. Holt paced the bridge, watching the alien ships approach on the tactical display. It was enormous, a dark wedge of metal and energy, its surface crawling with lights that seemed to pulse in time with the artifact's signal. When the core finally hummed to life, the Resolute shuddered. Engines sputtered, then caught. Holt felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet. Course for the relay station, maximum speed. Aye, sir. Course laid in ETA, 3 hours 47 minutes. The alien ship, still approaching. It'll be in weapons range in 2 hours. Holt sat down heavily. Helm, keep us steady. XO, get ready to abandon ship if it comes to that. I want escape pods prepped and lifeboats manned. Sir, if we abandon ship, we lose the artifact. If we don't, we lose everything. He stared at the display. The alien ship was a dark star on the edge of the system. That thing came for the artifact. It's not here to negotiate. The minutes crawled. The Resolute limped through the void, her engines screaming protest. The alien ship grew larger, its silhouette resolving into a structure of impossible angles and glowing seams. Holt felt the weight of its gaze. Then the transmission came. It wasn't a voice. It was a pattern, a series of tones that resonated in Holt's skull, bypassing the comm system entirely. The artifact on the bridge pulsed in response. The entire ship vibrated with a low hum. Sir, the artifact is synchronizing with the incoming signal. It's responding. Holt's hand went to his sidearm. Shut it down. Cut power to the artifact bay. Too late. The resonance is self-sustaining. It's drawing power from the alien ship. Voss's voice was tight. The ship is hailing us. Through the artifact, it's a message. Put it on speaker. The bridge filled with a sound like grinding stone, then words halting, ancient, speaking in a dialect of standard that was centuries old. You carry the key. You are not the builders. Explain or be unmade. Holt exchanged a glance with Chen. We found it. The Zalari attacked us. We defended ourselves. We don't know what it is. A pause. The alien ship's lights flickered. The key was lost. The builders are gone. You are not them, but you wielded it. You survived. That is unexpected. We're not your enemy. We just want to go home. Another pause. The artifact hummed louder. The key must be returned. The gate must be sealed. You will be allowed to leave, but the key stays. Holt's mind raced. The artifact was their only leverage. If they gave it up, they had nothing, but if they didn't, they were dead. We'll release it, but we need guarantees. Safe passage, your word. The alien ship was silent for a long moment, then the artifact went dark, the hum stopped, the ship's engines died. They've taken control, Voss whispered. We're dead in the water. Holt stared at the dark artifact. The alien ship loomed, patient and terrible. They had gambled, and they had lost. But the artifact was still there, and the gate was still out there, and he was still breathing. Get me a channel to the Zalari, he said. If they want this key so badly, maybe they can help us keep it. The bridge stared at him. He didn't blink. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started.